Okay, so this one was supposed to happen like back in November or so, but there were issues. So all two of you that saw the Newsies versus Swing Kids video
More than that.
knew this was gonna happen because I mentioned them by name. Well, here they are, and there's really no big reason behind it. It's just we were just thinking of someone. I was like, hey, let's do Denzel's Tony Scott train movies. Why not? One where the train won't stop moving and one where the train is totally stationary.
And this is also a replacement for something that was going to happen this week that's not going to happen.
It'll be for the same reason this one was delayed. So
Exactly.
Who knows when we're going to see that one? It's hard to tell.
Hopefully soon.
Okay.
We'll see.
Okay, so we're actually going to start. I actually have them in the reverse order because they came out 1 year after the other, which is weird because it feels like Unstoppable was so long after.
Yeah.
But no, just a year. This came out in June. Yes. And June of 2009, and this came out October or November of 2010.
I just got back or was going, so that should tell you.
I think it was the end of October.
Sounds right.
Okay, so we're gonna go. Even though they're reverse, I'm gonna start with Pelham 1, 2, 3. I think, which, as you know, is the remake of the movie from the 70s with Walter Matthau in Denzel's part and Robert Shaw in Travolta's part. And a lot of people love that movie, and I thought it was fine. But I'm gonna get a lot of shit for this because it's a very respected 70s thriller starring Walter Matthau and Robert Shaw. I always preferred this one, honestly. Sorry.
I hear the clicking right now.
But the great thing about it was it doesn't seem like it. Like, you see that movie and it's, a very, well put together thriller. You might be put off immediately when you see this movie, but that's one of the things that I love about it. When you watch this version of Pelham 1, 2, 3, it starts immediately. I don't know where Tony Scott heard Jay-Z singing 99 Problems and thought it fit this movie, but for some reason it does.
Yeah, it does.
It just starts immediately. One of the very first shots of the movie is that slow-mo shot of Travolta walking by, going right to his destination, and he has hijacked the train before the beginning credits are over. It is that fast. And I talk about that's always a bad idea in stuff like comedies, because there's pacing issues. In an action movie, that's a blessing.
Oh, yeah.
Because the movie's gonna the movie is ready to kick ass and not stop.
And it does just that.
Yes. We're very quickly introduced to... we keep cutting back and forth between introducing Denzel's character and seeing Travolta and his crew hijack the train. And we just go immediately. And that's what I love about it. This was kind of, I feel like we're talking about Eastwood again. Much like Eastwood, and I believe in the same year, or close to it, it might have been the year after, Tony Scott was one of those directors that was just kind of there, and had various movies from, like, Top Gun and Days of Thunder, and then, some other... I'm totally drawing a blank now. The Fan jumped out at me. The Fan was like 1996, where he didn't really have a particular style, per se, that you could really, really pinpoint. But his movies were often really frenetic, regardless. And you could... like, if you knew it was him, you could tell. I think Spy Game is his.
Sounds right.
Yeah, that might be... that one might be him or Ridley. That's the one where you can't tell, because he and Ridley were so different. But Spy Game's like one of those movies that's right in the middle where you can't really tell if it's Tony or Ridley. I'm pretty sure it's Tony, though. Enemy of the State, I think, is his. But anyway, eventually it got to, I believe, Man on Fire. And when Man on Fire came out, it introduced this style where everything looked really grainy and there was a lot of zooming and there was kind of like a blue-green tint going on, and it was just really, really hyperactive. And I believe Man on Fire is where that started, and then it pretty much carried over for the rest of his filmography until his death. which ended with Unstoppable. Where it went through that and Deja Vu and then Pelham 1, 2, 3, and I think there were a couple more in there. And the styles, that style shows off really well in these two, probably more so than it did in the others. Man on Fire, I remember making me really uncomfortable when I watched it. I don't know if it's because I wasn't used to the way he shot it or what, but yeah, or because that movie is so fucking relentless. But
Yeah.
So this story begins, and it's a story that we've seen a lot. Two fantastic actors thrown into it, Travolta and Denzel.
Yes.
Going face to face. When I learned that this movie, when I learned that this movie was happening, it was one of those movies I really anticipated, because I was like, oh my god, this is going to be awesome. That first still Travolta came out. This is the kind of movie, I believe, where Travolta was finally embracing his baldness.
Mm-hmm.
His balding. And he really, fit the character and made him this tattooed. He's got the tattoo on his neck with the gun that says, "From my cold dead hands." But still, it's something on the surface we've seen a billion times.
Mm-hmm.
We have he's contacted Denzel, and he's, talking about what he wants and making his demands and giving them a time and something. And while they're waiting for the time to go down, they're interacting, and they're kind of having this little psychological back and forth and all that. And one's trying to outsmart the other, and we've seen it all before. And then we have the hostages kind of, interacting with each other and stuff like that. And saying, we're getting to know some of their backstories, like the woman that sees the guy's ring and says, "My husband had one of those, so I thought you would have had a battle plan or something." It's like, yeah, you're throwing some backstory at the hostage is fine, whatever. And the things where they try to devise plans and shit like that. It's all been done before, but still, the movie's just done so well. This movie is awesome. There's a really admirable cast that's in it. We have the negotiator as John Turturro, the mayor of New York is James Gandolfini. Louis Guzman is like Travolta's right hand. I'm sure there's other people I'm missing. But that's the main cast, and that's enough to draw your attention.
Oh yeah.
And there's a lot of suspense. I really love how the movie does not relent on time. Like, that's like a really, like, it goes by so quickly, you don't really register it right away, and you just kind of take it as a funny line that Travolta has, but it's actually, like, a major gut punch if you're in Denzel's position. When he says, I want $10 million, down here right away, as soon as possible. And he says, "When do you think you can get it to me?" And Denzel says, "Thursday?" And Travolta's response is, "Really? Because I was thinking 1 hour." And the movie counts down from then on.
Yeah.
And it never stops. Like, it's always reminding you how much time is left. And you're getting closer and closer. And it actually gets to that point to where they miss it because they fuck it up, which we'll talk about in a second. And Travolta's character is a man of his word and shoots a passenger dead when they go a minute over. And it's awesome. Because Travolta is so good in this. We were talking, that's the whole reason I did the Face Off Broken Arrow video before.
Mm-hmm.
When Travolta plays, Denzel too, when Travolta plays a villain, it is so over the top magnificent.
It's amazing in every way possible.
It's so hammy and over the top, but I love it so much because he's so awesome. This character, Ryder with a Y.
You like Trini Ryder? No, like Zack Ryder.
I love the moments. He has so many evil moments in it.
Oh my
that
god.
are fantastic. Some of my favorites are, you have the guy Jerry who Denzel went to school with, and he's there, and he was the conductor, and they're just kind of he's just kind of there to be, the guy that's kind of used as collateral. And then the first time something goes wrong, he just looks really coldly at Jerry and pulls his gun out and says, "It was always going to be you first," before he kills him. And then I love the moment where the sniper is watching them through his scope, trying to be really, really discreet and in the darkness. And we see Travolta through the scope, and he just gives the finger. One of my favorite lines in the movie is when he's screaming at Gandolfini, and the exact line goes, "You can lick my bunghole, motherfucker."
I love his delivery, too.
Yeah, perfect Travolta delivery. But he also has those things that make him really likable,
Yeah.
like how he's not trying to be an over-the-top villain or anything. Like I love his very Travolta-esque delivery of, "Do I look like a terrorist? Do I terrorize you?" And the talking about the they're watching they're hearing the news, and they're referred to as a criminal enterprise. And he just kind of looks at Guzman and says, "You hear that? We're an enterprise." When he has the skateboard kid and he puts the gun in his face to threaten Denzel to make sure he meets the expectations, and he's like, "This standing in front of me, he's probably in his late teens, he's got an 80s skateboard thing going on. I don't know, he makes it work." It's just such a great character, and that's really what makes it kind of rise above the normal villainous over the top thing. Like when he was, Castor Troy or Vic Deakins, he was just pure unadulterated over the top hamminess. Still awesome. But this character kind of rises above that kind of thing because he's just has those different things about him, and especially when we get to learn his backstory where he was like a broker that just lost everything, and it was a joke for a long time with us that he's this big badass, he's got the neck tattoo, he's got the facial hair, he can just shoot people willy-nilly for anything, and will do anything to make sure his demands are met. His name is fucking Dennis Ford.
Dennis Ford, yes.
Because it was funny to us in Savages a few years later when his name was Dennis again.
Yes.
And he wasn't exactly a nice guy in that movie either.
No.
On the other side of the law, but still not exactly a nice guy. So that's great. And Denzel really, really does his character really well. I love those little moments. There's a lot of moments. Unstoppable really does this too. I guess because he was so comfortable with Tony Scott because they'd done so many movies together. Denzel had this great thing going on, especially in Tony Scott movies, where he can make everything he says feel improvised.
Mm-hmm.
And he does it really, really well. Like, the moment I love at the end when he's talking to Gandolfini with, Gandolfini's always talking about how he hates New York and he can't wait till his term's up so he can move away to Hawaii or whatever. And at the end, Denzel just casually asks him, "Are you a Yankees fan?" "No." "Oh, yes, of course." And it's a real, genuine moment between two people. There's a really great, seemingly improvised moment Denzel has in Unstoppable we'll talk about. I've also always loved that moment. I don't know if it was scripted or he was directed that way or what was going on. I love that little moment where he's looking for a speaker so everybody in the room can hear Travolta and hear his demands. Mm-hmm. And he's trying to say, "Yes, we can all hear you," but he's stuttering while he's looking for a speaker, and it comes out, we can all hear you. Now, another thing that we have to talk about with this movie, while we've got this back and forth going on between makeshift negotiator and hostage taker, it's also got to be an action movie.
Yeah.
So what this movie does, I'm going to be honest with you, it's actually quite brilliant. This movie realizes it needs to be an action movie. So what it does is they devise a plan to get the money to the train. They have the $10 million, it's ready to go, they just have to get it to the train. Mm. So what they do is they get in a whole bunch of police cars and they try to drive there in a big parade of cop cars in busy New York traffic. And this is how we get our action scenes from this movie come from incompetence.
Yeah.
Because the big action scenes are the police cars thinking they can speed through New York without getting smacked by trucks. And
that doesn't work that way.
And it's one of those things where, like, they hit a taxi and it completely flies into the air. And then there's the moment where they're driving in just a regular cop car, and they get smashed into by a truck, and they flip over, fly off of a bridge, and into the middle of traffic and get run over. and they're pulled out and they look fine. And it's so ridiculous that these are because it makes it feel like you're watching a big action movie when you stop and you realize the only reason all this shit is going down, all this big stuff is happening, is because people are being fucking stupid.
It's true.
And the movie keeps calling it out.
Yeah.
Because they keep, when they, like, all this goes down and all the wrecks happen and the big action scene happens, and Gandolfini's just sitting there rolling his eyes going, why didn't we just take a fucking helicopter? And then when they finally get the helicopter, somebody actually says, well, now that we've pulled our heads out of our asses. They totally could have done that right away, but we wouldn't have had an awesome action scene. I don't care how stupid it is. That scene is awesome.
Agreed.
And that's why it's in there, and Tony Scott knew that. And it's great. It's what makes the movie it is. And another thing, when the sniper accidentally kills Gosman by accident, it gives him a graphic headshot. It's because he's this really well-trained sniper that, is just, stone cold and is there to really do his job.
Yeah.
Shoots him in the head because a rat crawls up his pant leg. And the gun goes off. So many people in this movie are complete idiots.
True. And they have weapons.
And the movie is totally ready to call itself out on that.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it great. Because that's the kind of movie that it knows its tone. That's the thing. Because the whole thing, the movie immediately knows it's not being a deadly serious movie. The opening of the movie is a tattooed John Travolta walking around to Jay-Z. The movie knows its tone from the get-go. It was not made to be, analyzed about why the fuck would they not take the helicopter to begin with. This is not that kind of movie.
No.
In Travolta's character, this is not a deadly serious movie by any means. Serious circumstances for sure, and they really show you the stakes are high when he starts killing hostages. But it's not that kind of movie. It's really not. And it knows that. And that's what makes it so goddamn fun. This movie is so much goddamn fun, I almost can't take it. It's great. I love watching this movie so much. However, we also have Unstoppable, which came out a year later, which had to be a little smarter. Number one, maybe to kind of combat it a little bit, because it's clear these two were going to be compared.
Of course.
And secondly, because it's, once again, we know movies sensationalize practically everything. But nevertheless, the events in Unstoppable really happened, to whatever extent. I have no idea, but for the most part, I believe it's told as accurately as it could be.
Yeah.
Especially being an action movie starring Denzel by Tony Scott. You're in for something totally off the wall. Totally insane. Because they kind of set the bar when they've made so many movies together, but when they made Man on Fire, they kind of said, this is the crazy-ass direction we're going from now on. Deal with it.
and it made Denzel into a badass. It started many, many moons ago with Training Day, but then, now his career he's an action star.
Yeah.
But he has some great roles, regardless.
Yeah, he was a lot more dramatic before Training Day, but then once Training Day happened, isn't it weird that of all things, his best actor Oscar-winning role is what propelled him into action star? That's a little weird.
Liam Neeson can't say that.
Yeah. Unstoppable has a very, very intriguing premise.
Yeah.
Where we have, once again, very, very familiar story on the surface. Mm-hmm. Where Chris Pine is the new young guy and Denzel is the old seasoned veteran, and he's real cranky because, Chris Pine's here basically based on his family. And they're just going to kind of be at odds with each other as this day goes on. But then you have Ethan Suplee and T.J. Miller. So incompetence will be had.
Of course.
And a train is accidentally set off by itself. And it just so happens that this train has a whole bunch of chemicals in its cargo. And as Rosario Dawson really interestingly puts it, this train basically becomes a missile the size of the Chrysler Building. And it is just hurtling down this track, unmanned, and as the title says.
Yeah.
So Denzel and Chris Pine have to work together and intervene and help save
the towns that it's going towards.
Yes, I almost just wanted to go all out and say the world. We'll say that. They would have to save the world.
Sounds good to
me. So yes, because they keep saying this will be like the state's biggest disaster or something. It's like, fuck that, they're saving the world. That's just what we'll say.
That works.
Because the movie's so intense, it almost leads you to believe that's how high the stakes are.
It really does.
Now, what's interesting about this is what it does with this setup where, you have the tension between Denzel and Chris Pine over I'm old and I'm young and But the thing about it is they actually have personalities that make this work.
Yeah.
Because Denzel, obviously, despite being the crotchety old guy, is actually still really likable. And we have the story where he's trying his best to not be estranged from his daughters, but he's getting real close to that. To kind of give you something to feel for him for. And they do something really interesting with Pine's story, which is all we know about him is that his wife has a restraining order out on him. But they keep it real mysterious throughout the movie. Like, he's taking calls that we don't hear the other side of.
Mm-hmm.
And it really adds a very interesting aspect to his character where you try to... While they're trying to stop a missile the size of a Chrysler building from blowing up the town, the world, we're trying desperately to figure out what is up with this character.
Yeah.
And that makes it really intriguing and really adds, layers to it. And I actually love how and he's not just the guy that, puts up with the old guy being the old guy and says, oh yeah, well, I'll show you at the end when I save the day. He's assertive from the get-go.
Mm-hmm.
He says immediately, you know what, this is stupid, cliche bullshit. Stop harassing me for being young. You old fuck.
Yeah, pretty much.
If that was the real dialogue, that'd be awesome. But yeah, it's more well-written than that, of course. But the interesting thing that I love about that, the way they handle that, is when we finally do, because it kind of sets up for the whole movie. It's like, okay, this is awesome and everything, but when we finally find out Pine's story, it's going to be really clunky exposition that's really sloppy and lazy and all that. But no, when Pine is explaining to us his story, the suspense is already building because they have caught up to the train and they are speeding towards it. And it's while the suspense of the scene is already rising, he says, this is my story, and his story builds with the suspense of what's going on the outside.
It's perfect placement too.
And they do a lot with all the there's a lot of like close calls and stuff like that. One of the really interesting things is how they the setup with the school of kids. They set it up like the whole big thing of the movie is going to be, we have to stop this before that train of kids blows up. Because the movie starts with, we see the beginning of Pine's day, and then we see the kids on the train. This is the opening credit sequence. And this is when you think they're building it up like these kids are the crucial thing. This will be what they have to save. This is the big thing. Half an hour in, the kids are the first thing they save, and that never comes back.
Yeah.
It's just, let's make sure we get it. The train turned just in time, and the kids are safe. All right, that's done. But they also have a purpose because they're the whole reason that Kevin Corrigan is there, and Kevin Corrigan ends up playing a crucial character in the control room. So yeah, it all comes together. It's not all just kind of thrown out there, though I always do love the fake out about the kids. You think they're going to be a much bigger deal, and they're not. They're the first ones saved. There's the moment where they have to save the horses from out of the thing, and T.J. Miller almost gets taken out by one of the railroad crossing signs. Yeah, if only.
Yeah, no lie.
So yes, they really, really make use of their concept, and there's a lot of suspense in the movie, which is great. And it's a great idea for an action movie. I mean, it sucks that it happened in real life, but at the same time, as long as nobody's too bad, like the Marine that went through the windshield that looked really, really dead. The "where are they now" thing comes up at the end. And it's like, oh no, he's fine, he's great, and it's like, oh good, all right, so. All right, good. This totally went well.
As well as it could, I guess.
And we have more cuts. Rosario Dawson is really good here.
Yes.
It does kind of suck that she's like this. She's introduced as this female character that's really crucial and really great, and it's almost a female character in a role like that without it being mentioned at all that she's a female character. However, we have to have just that one line at the very beginning where T.J. Miller calls her a ball buster. That had to be in there, but fine. I mean, I'm not overly, like, oh, this movie's sexist because of that. No, I'm not. It just, it seems like it almost had something going there, and they just had to throw that line in there for some reason. It just seemed like,
I'll throw the blame on him. We'll say it was an improv line.
Speaking of him, it's really nice to see T.J. Miller and Ethan Suplee play two characters working together in a movie. And surprisingly, they're not the comedy relief. They're like the real driving aspects of how this takes off. I mean, they're still kind of do a comedy relief thing a little bit, but not to the extent you'd think, given their casting. And of course, the reliable Kevin Corrigan I mentioned earlier, and Kevin Dunn is the guy that Rosario has to keep getting, the okay from to do stuff, and
of course he is.
He's always that guy. Every time he's that guy. There's that really sad episode of Roseanne where he's the lonely boss. Remember that? It's like he's a real douchebag version of that guy now.
He's not that guy in Snake Eyes.
And he's Sam Witwicky's dad, but that's not
that
bad. So there's that. I would like to say, I mean, I feel bad saying this because this was Tony Scott's last movie and everything, but in his direction, I mean, it's a really well put together movie, and he did a fantastic, magnificent job with it. I mixed those up.
Fantastic. Yes. That's the word of the day, folks.
Yes. Well, but because the movie's so testosterone.
Hashtag fantastic.
So anyway.
Started trending.
No, please don't. So, however, the one thing that bothers me, you know where I'm going with this if you've seen the movie, the zooming, that's a little much.
Yeah.
That's a little much for this movie. Like, it's in Pelham a little bit, and I think it's in Man on Fire and Deja Vu and stuff a lot. Like
it's definitely Man on Fire a little bit.
But, it's a little much for Unstoppable, especially when they're doing, like, the action scenes, I guess I can kind of understand, even though action is best from a distance.
Yeah.
But the scenes where they're just not doing anything, like when Denzel's just, like, talking to him at the beginning, and it's, like, why? Fucking why? Is it to build up, like, the frenetic energy later?
Maybe.
But no, apart from that, it's a really well put together movie, and like I said, it's a great concept for an action movie. And yes, and once again, I was talking about how Denzel seems really great at feeling like things are improvised, and the chemistry with him and Pine is really great.
Oh yeah.
One of my favorite moments is the very end. The action is over, everything is pretty much over, and it's this great moment. It may have possibly been scripted, but it felt so improvised. After they have saved the day and they're meeting Rosario for the first time after only hearing her and talking to her through the radio, they're finally seeing each other face to face. And Denzel and Pine are standing here, and Rosario walks up and she says, "Okay, which one of you am I going to kiss first?" And Denzel does not break eye contact the entire... Like, she walks up and he does not break his stare. And then she says, "Okay, who am I going to kiss first?" And without missing a beat, he says, "Me?" I love that moment, and it's a great little ending, because it pretty much ends right there. It ends just as fast as it started. I didn't give it really credit for that, but not to the extent of Pelham, maybe by like 30 seconds or a minute or two. Mm-hmm. Unstoppable also starts pretty much immediately. Not quite as soon as Pelham, but still enough to say it starts pretty much immediately. So yes, this is a really fun double feature.
Yeah, definitely.
This is a really, really great, as the critics would say, pulse pounding double feature. I prefer Pelham, but they're both really fun.
And I don't think this is the last time we'll see Denzel Washington on Versus either, honestly.
Dude's got a lot of movies, I would think not.
That's exactly what I'm thinking, to be totally honest.
Okay.
So that's what we got for this week. Excuse me. Next week...
Crimson Tide, that was Tony Scott.
Yes. Next week, we are... question mark. So I'll let you guys know on the wrestling videos what our cryptic comment's going to be. Because we don't know what the... that's not the comment, it's not a question mark, but...
I started to question myself. I'm pretty sure Tony Scott did Crimson Tide.
We'll go with that.
I don't like Crimson Tide, so I'm not positive or anything.
So that's what we got. Versus is in the books. Tomorrow is, of course, NXT. Tuesday, Ashley and myself talking Raw, the go-home show before Extreme Rules. Wednesday is going to be the Impact Wrestling recap. Brand new Sip and Snack on Thursday. AJ's movie reviews of Monkey Kingdom, as well as Age of Adeline and Little Boy coming up on Friday. Saturday, Gaming with Ash, and Sunday, another brand new Versus. That's what we've got here on Pop. More Halloween Horror Nights videos coming soon. So that's all we've got for today. AJ, any parting words?